Nature and culture in Bavaria. Each would only be half as valuable without the other. The famous trumpet echo of Königssee, the Lake of Kings, ricochets off the mountainsides and multiplies to become a polyphonic concerto. Diversity of nature is also an expression of culture. Yes, you can trust your eyesight. With dancers of the Bavarian State Ballet, the high arts have come to the wilderness of the Bavarian national parks. At first, in the Bavarian Forest National Park. The year was 2004, when the ballet company attracted attention by way of especially created wilderness choreographies. A new kind of experiment is being rehearsed. Unspoilt nature and the threats to her are serving both as a stage and inspiration for the artists.
I see this all over the place with no regard for the consequences man infringes on nature. This happens in my piece as well. Once rivers are straitjacketed, floods follow, and when trees are taken down at all the wrong places, avalanches are likely to happen.
But in the end, nature happily triumphs over man-made destruction. Now to the Berchtesgaden National Park, where the dancers listen attentively to the orders of the ballet mistress and submit to the rhythms of the music. Nature is permitted to follow her own devices. During the first excursion, the troupe gets acquainted with the wilderness of the national park. While the dancers are still fooling around, a surprising encounter is taking place. Vladimir Faccioni, who dances the game warden, Hilarion in the ballet Giselle, meets the authentic game warden, the national park ranger Klaus Melde. With the ballet's artistic director Ivan Lischka, Faccioni uses the occasion to have the scenery explained by an expert.
We are standing here in the Wimbach Valley. The special feature of the Wimbach Valley is that it contains a huge stream of rubble, which fills the entire valley and which at some place is almost 300 meters deep. Here we have wilderness. We have absolute wilderness here. One cannot live here. One cannot build a home here. It is not like, as somebody said, that we made the artist's pose anywhere. No, this place is absolutely unique.
Through photographs of dancers of the Bavarian State Ballet, Bavarian Wilderness has come to be known internationally. As was the case in Alaska, where wilderness always had a special taste. At an exhibition during the 8th World Wilderness Congress in Anchorage, the photos of the dancers received special recognition. The combination of ballet and wilderness, staged by the photographer Bernie Meyer from Nuremberg, shows that Europe has a distinctive wilderness tradition of its own.
These are called villis, or rusalkas by some. They also had witches of midday and witches of the evenings. Every country, every time of the day practically had its own creatures, its own forest fairies.
In Germany, some of these creatures gained immortality in the works of the poet Heinrich Heine. The French dramatist and poet Théophile Gautier borrowed these villis from a tale by Heine in mythological Germany in 1841 and brought them back to life in the ballet Giselle. In a sense, the performance of this ballet in a national park, the epitome of wilderness, has long been overdue. The information center of the national park turns into a ballet dressing room. The first act of Giselle is about to start. Giselle, an enamoured peasant girl, learns of her lover's noble descent and realises that he has fooled her with deceptive double play. Mad with despair, Giselle breaks down and dies in the arms of Albrecht. And between the first and the second act, there is time to take photos. And while the forest elves get ready for performance with a few dashes of insect repellent, there's even time for a short press conference.
I have to admit that at the beginning I was very sceptical of this project. I thought that the ballet as a highly artificial art form really does not have anything in common with wilderness, which is supposed to be left to its own devices. More and more, however, I learned that the wilderness has a highly emotional component. I was just asked by a reporter what the protection of the environment of nature has got to do with ballet. For one thing, it is noteworthy that it was the artists who have first set off the environmental movement. Science-based conservation came later. Science alone is not enough to reach the hearts of the people. Wilderness is something very dynamic, something that stirs the emotions. Today we see that many people have a longing for wilderness, a longing to travel, to go trekking in areas which have remained wild, seeking the challenge of an encounter with wild nature.
In the second act of Giselle, the heroine turns into a Vili, a perplexingly beautiful creature who entices the young lads to follow her into the deep, unearthly wilderness, leading them into the overgrown lake. The French librettists believed that Giselle's grave must have lain deep in the dark German forests. Whether the beautiful creatures are called Vilis, sylphides or forest nymphs, it was poets, painters and storytellers who conjured up the spirits of wilderness. As the Age of Enlightenment turned the forests into lumber factories, the arts provided the antidote, the re-enchantment of nature. In the ballet Swan Lake, young women who had been magically transformed into wild swans impersonate the longing for redemption in unity with nature. A quarrel between world and counterworld is set off. The magician, Redbeard, and the worldly prince Siegfried clash in a fight for the soul of the Swan Queen. The inhabitants of otherworldly spheres are also summoned in modern classical dance. As multiform creatures, descendants of the airy spirit Ariel chase across a deserted island. In his movements, Ariel links up to some elementary attributes. Powerful, transitory and mesmerizing, he embodies the intangible and the sublime of elementary nature. The solo of Savage Caliban reminds us of the animalistic, the earthy, and yes, the unfathomable in all of us. If today we associate the term wilderness with dangerous or promising characteristics, we are also connecting to the Brothers Grimm. In their dictionary, the keepers of the Holy Grail of the High Romantic era wrote down everything which is of interest to German minds in the 19th century. In more than 5 columns, this dictionary supplies us with definitions and examples of the notion of wilderness. Paracelsus, the famous natural physician, described sylphs as living in the wilderness. As we know from the Ballet Les Sylphides, these were close relatives of the Willis. The wilderness was also considered a region for heathens. The Laplanders are no true Christians, as they only subsist in the wilderness. Older representations mostly seem to take note of the unfriendly aspects of nature, such as dangers from wild animals and other creatures of the wilderness. But there also was a milder perception, which permits the word to be used for lovely and attractive areas, especially the romantic forest and mountain regions of the homeland. So already in the old days, the tri-national region of Bavaria, the Czech Republic and Austria was obviously well known for a diverse mosaic of lovely towns and romantic wildernesses. Today, the same countryside that holds the cities Passau and Linz also contains the Bavarian Forest National Park, the Schumava National Park, the Dürrenstein Wilderness Area, and the Berchtesgaden National Park. Wilderness has tradition in Germany. The brothers Grimm were aware of the importance of the close proximity of culture and wild nature. Long before, in 1871, the world's first wilderness was protected in Yellowstone National Park in North America. Today we know that, by way of wilderness and biodiversity, a landscape remains productive and resilient if catastrophes strike. Wild rivers and wetlands work as buffers against floods. Vast forests effectively function as carbon dioxide filters. Wildness calls for tolerance. Liberation, consenting to natural dynamics, isn't easily accomplished, as this modern version of the Ballet Giselle shows. Sometimes things don't turn out as expected. This holds true for liberated nature, just as it does for human relationships. Confidence, but also letting go of control, is one of the prerequisites for development. Nature mirrors human nature. Today, it is the dancers of the Bavarian State Ballet who have become ambassadors of the wilderness in Bavaria. It's only right that a nation's cultural achievements permit not just its citizens the freedom of expression, but also its nature.